Hello and welcome to TeleSUR. I'm Doris Polo in Quito, Ecuador, and this is from the south. Brazil received 2 million doses of the AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine from India on Friday. The jab was developed by AstraZeneca and the University of Oxford. It was flown to Rio de Janeiro, where the state-run Fiocruz Institute is based. Fiocruz has an agreement to produce and distribute the vaccine. However, experts have warned that the shipment will do little to tackle an insufficient supply in the nation of 210 million people. This is contrary to a recent statement by President Jair Bolsonaro, who said there would be enough vaccines for a proper immunization campaign.
These 2 million doses are just the beginning. It's only the beginning of the process. We are negotiating more doses in early February, and the active pharmaceutical ingredient needed for Fiocruz to start producing up to 15 million doses per month. These imported doses are to start the process, but the national production with the Fiocruz in Bhutan, and probably in a private company for the production of the Sputnik vaccine, which is being negotiated, which allows to have mass production.
Also on Friday, the Brazilian Health Regulatory Agency approved the emergency use of the Chinese-made COVID-19 vaccine, Coronavac. The agency's board of directors unanimously approved the experimental authorization of 4.8 million doses of Coronavac, developed as part of a partnership between the Chinese pharmaceutical company Sinovac and the Butantan Institute linked to the government of Sao Paulo state. Now, this represents the second authorization by the regulatory agency for the drug after approving 6 million doses of Coronavac for use last Sunday. The vaccines will be made available to the Ministry of Health next week. Over to Venezuela, the Supreme Court of Justice kicked off the 2021 judicial year with a ceremony that brought together the legitimate representatives of the 5 branches of government for the first time since the parliamentary elections on December 6th. During the ceremony held at the headquarters of the country's top court, the president of the judicial branch, Michael Moreno, highlighted the institution's commitment to the fight against impunity regarding misappropriation of the state's resources by the far right through a regime backed by the United States. The magistrate emphasized that this does not impact the government's willingness for dialogue and reconciliation. For his part, President Nicolas Maduro highlighted the strengthening of Venezuelan institutions in the face of international attacks.
In the Trumpist era, a parallel state has been intended, and it is intended to maintain the lines of a parallel state that does not exist in Venezuela and is ineffective, irritating, null in Venezuela. That is why it is so important that alongside the resistance of the people, the economic, spiritual, moral, social, and economic resistance of the people in the face of the onslaught of imperialist aggression. There has been a national state also in active resistance, and today we can say in this installation of the year 2021, the national state has triumphed. Venezuela today has a national state that is also in active resistance, economic, social resistance of that people against the onslaught of imperialist aggression. There has been a national state also in active resistance, and today we can say in this installation of the year 2021, the national state has triumphed. Venezuela today is stronger from the constitutional point of view, from the point of view of its institutions, and we are facing an increasingly strengthened judiciary.
Meanwhile, the president of the Supreme Court of Justice denounced the U.S. government's strategy of stripping the country of its assets held abroad.
This court cannot fail to denounce the theft of our company, Citgo, which is intended to be materialized through legal channels. This maneuver, initiated by subversive and illegitimate actors, deserves the repudiation of the entire body of jurists and of the highest judicial authorities worldwide. It is evident that the intention behind all this is to continue stealing the country's assets. Therefore, we alert the world to this new strategy of dispossession promoted by foreign actors and used by the United States judicial bodies that violate commercial law and legal security, as well as the principle of legitimacy to which all legal actions are subject.
Michael Moreno also called on Guyana to put dialogue and peace first in addressing the border dispute with Venezuela regarding the Essequibo territory, stressing the importance of avoiding a regional conflict.
Let us not allow the Essequibo to become an excuse for the elites to provoke an escalation of violence between South American brothers, or let the peace and stability of the region be threatened. We are a peaceful nation, but protective of our sovereignty, aware of the leading role that corresponds to us in the defense of the rights over the Essequibo territory, and we will ensure they are respected.
Shifting gears now, Ecuador is preparing to hold general elections in early February. Our correspondent in Quito, Denise Herrera, brings us a profile of one of the candidates vying for the presidency.
Indigenous leader and environmental activist Yaku Sacha Pérez guartambel was born on February 26, 1969, in Ataqui parish of Cuenca Canton. His name was Carlos until 2018, when he decided to change it to one that represented his personal struggle. Yaku, meaning water, and Sacha, meaning jungle. Among his campaign proposals are the renegotiation of oil contracts, a popular consultation to declare Ecuador free of extractive exploitation, the return of large-scale mining to the state, and constitutional reform, among others.
The human right to water must be protected, and in my government we will call for a popular consultation so that you will be the ones to decide at the ballot box about the exploitation of mining and water resources. Your decision is fundamental.
Yaku graduated as a lawyer, although his degree is not registered with the National Secretariat of Higher Education. What is registered are the 4 postgraduate degrees in watershed management, environmental law, indigenous justice, and criminal law. In the public sphere, Yaku was president of Ecuador, the Confederation of Peoples of Quichua nationality, from 2013 to 2019, and prefect of Asua province between 2019 and 2020, a post he left due to his candidacy for the presidency.
We have clean hands. We don't owe anything to any bank, or to corruption, or to drug trafficking. We owe everything to the people.
Yaku became one of the biggest opponents of former President Rafael Correa and was detained several times. In the 2017 elections, he declared that a banker is preferable to a dictatorship. He defines himself as close to a flexible, open left, and has also said he does not believe in capitalism or socialism or communism, but in communitarianism. His candidacy is one of several representing the indigenous movement.
Denise Herrera, TeleSUR, Quito, Ecuador.
We have more stories coming up. Don't go away.
Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali analyzes the international media influence driven by the empire, acts an analysis of political, economic and social life throughout Latin America through our stream and website in English, a critical space committed to truth to determine the conjuncture that moved the world today. The World Today. Mondays on TeleSUR.
Welcome back. Bolivia has celebrated the 12th anniversary of the establishment of the Plural National State, born with the new constitution that recognized the indigenous peoples and their cultures. President Luis Arce Cataroca presided over the occasion and presented a wreath to Pachamama. During the event on Friday, celebrated differently as a result of the pandemic, the four state powers as well as social and campesino organizations agreed on the objectives to achieve unity and social justice. In 2010, former President Evo Morales issued a decree that marked the date.
The coup d'etat of 2019 tried to extinguish intercultural democracy from the first hours of its government, seeking to take us back to the Republican state and the elimination of the symbols of the plurinational state, like our huipala, which was cut, trampled, and burned. Also, since November 2019, the old neoliberal economic model was reinstated with devastating results that we are still facing.
In Chile, social movements were violently repressed by the police during a fresh day of protest to demand the release of those detained during the social unrest of October 2019. Now, the demonstrators who gathered in Baquedano Square were surrounded by the police, who sprayed them with water cannons. One of the protesters was reported to be in a serious condition after having been directly hit by the pressurized jet of water from one of the police trucks and falling head first onto a sidewalk. At the same time, many protesters reported burns after being sprayed with guanaco, a chemical of unknown composition that is mixed with the water from the trucks. Over to Peru, representatives of health unions rallied in front of the health ministry headquarters for the 10th consecutive day. Union reps have stressed that the national government has not complied with the implementation of the third salary increase scheduled for the month of January 2020. The pay rise was an agreement between the national government with health professionals in 2020 after widespread protests. Health workers are also denouncing a lack of COVID-19 tests for medical personnel, in addition to warning of the high rate of hospital bed occupancy throughout the country. Guatemala's Foreign Minister Pedro Brolo urged neighboring governments not to tolerate migrant caravans during his meeting with representatives of Mexico and the United States.
We call on friendly countries to demonstrate with concrete acts that they will not tolerate and will counteract any attempt to form massive flows of people.
During the coordination meeting convened by Guatemala, the Mexican ambassador to the country, Romeo Ruiz Armento, expressed support for orderly immigration, which he said should be restricted due to the current health risks.
So we need to issue an appeal with all fraternity to our brothers of culture, of race. Don't leave your homes. Do not expose yourselves. Do not expose your families. Do not expose yourselves. Too much more delicate dramas than those that are already experienced with this type of migration.
We're taking one last break, but stay with us.
TeleSUR English presents a weekly program to discuss the political, economic and social issues affecting the Caribbean community. We'll challenge stereotypes and unpack the diversity of the region through the analysis of unique cultures, religions and art. We Caribbean. Wednesdays. Only on TeleSUR.
Welcome back. Tropical storm Eloise has developed into a cyclone and has made landfall in the Mozambican port city of Beira, leaving a trail of destruction along its path. Eloise dumped more than 300 millimeters of rain in just 36 hours, causing widespread flooding in the region that was hit hard by Cyclone Idai in 2019. The government on Thursday placed rescue teams on high alert and urged citizens living in flood-prone areas to evacuate. Now, Cyclone Idai killed more than 1,000 people across Mozambique, Malawi and Zimbabwe. Well, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said there was some evidence the new coronavirus variant, first discovered in the UK, could be linked to a higher death rate. He was speaking on Friday.
Informed today that in addition to spreading more quickly, it also now appears that there is some evidence that the new variant, the variant that was first identified in London and the South East, may be associated with a higher degree of mortality. And I'm going to ask Patrick in a minute to say a bit more about that, because it's largely the impact of this new variant that means the NHS is under such intense pressure.
U.S. President Joe Biden warned on Friday that the number of coronavirus deaths in the country was expected to surpass 600,000 and urged Congress to move fast on his $1.9 trillion plan to battle COVID-19 and provide economic relief to struggling citizens.
Today, I'm signing an executive order that directs the whole of government, a whole of government effort to help millions of Americans who are badly hurting. It requires all federal agencies to do what they can do to provide relief to families, small business, and communities. And in the days ahead, I expect agencies to act. We have the tools to get through this. We have the tools to get this virus under control and our economy back on track. And we have the tools to help people. So let's use the tools, all of them. Use them now.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said that the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which came into effect on Friday, is an important step towards the goal of a world free of nuclear weapons and a strong demonstration of support for multilateral approaches to nuclear disarmament.
To recognize today's entry into force of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, the first multilateral nuclear disarmament treaty in more than 2 decades. The treaty is an important step towards the goal of a world free of nuclear weapons and a strong demonstration of support for multilateral approaches to nuclear disarmament. I commend the states that have ratified the treaty and welcome the instrumental role of civil society in advancing negotiation and entry into force. The survivors of nuclear explosions and nuclear tests offered tragic testimonies and were a moral force behind the treaty. Entry into force is a tribute to their enduring advocacy. I look forward to carrying out the functions assigned by the treaty, including in preparation for the first meeting of states parties. Nuclear weapons pose growing dangers and the world needs urgent action to ensure their elimination and prevent the catastrophic human and environmental consequences any use would cause. The elimination of nuclear weapons remains the highest disarmament priority of the United Nations. I call on all states to work together to realize this ambition to advance common security and collective safety.
And on that note, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And feel free to join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I am Doris Polo. Thanks so much for watching.
This February 7th.